Hello there, thank you so much for stopping by. My name is ChitChad and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster, where we are working in the studio theme park. Today we're going to start working on an area of the park that I have been super hyped for, and that is the Angel Grove / Power Rangers area of the park. As you can see, we've already dropped in the command center. This command center was made way back in the day at one of my original Power Ranger parks. It was one of the first parks that I ever built in Planet Coaster. It was a project that was never quite finished because it was more of just a, hey, I have an idea, I want to see if I can execute it. And this was before you could do custom scenery pieces or anything like that, so it was very rudimentary. But now that we've got so many more options and we can customize things to a much greater degree, I figured, hey, let's at least keep the skeleton of the command center because overall I think it looks pretty similar to the actual building, and let's just sprucing the place up a little bit. You'll see in this episode I'm going to move this thing around quite a bit because I'm just trying to get a nice sight line for visitors, but I did know that I wanted it to be elevated from the rest of the park because the command center sits atop this crazy mountain-like structure in the middle of nowhere, and so I wanted to at least give it somewhat that idea, but we're going to kind of build Angel Grove around it. And when it came time to build Angel Grove, I wasn't exactly sure what version of it I wanted to represent, whether it was the Japanese footage that kind of takes place in a metropolitan urban city, or if you go by the American footage, which it just looks like a town, a small town in the middle of nowhere, or if you go by the newer movie version, which it's like this coast fishing village. It's like this almost like a San Francisco by the Bay kind of vibe to it. So we just kind of take all the ideas and just mush them together. But this is going to house the Power Rangers coaster. I don't really have a name for it yet. Now, originally I was thinking about doing dueling coasters, maybe one with the Dragon Zord and one representing the Megazord, but I started to think, maybe not for this time around, but what I want to do is a kind of a themed coaster that has dark ride sections. Let's take the Tron coaster at Disney Shanghai, which is actually going to be in the Magic Kingdom. I just saw aerial photos of it where they actually have some of the support structures for the track going up already, which is awesome because that means one day if I ever go back to Florida, I can ride it because that ride looks absolutely amazing. So in that ride, it goes from kind of scene building to scene building, but there is this bridge connection where it actually goes over the queue, it looks like. And so there's going to be parts of Angel Grove that I want this coaster to interact with, and we'll have some of the Zords built, which in the next episode or two, I'll actually start building one of the Zords, which was a lot of fun. And you'll also see I mucked around with the pathing system quite a lot to try and just get something that I liked, because I wanted this to be rather accessible, and I wanted to have a good sightline, and I wanted it to be visually appealing. But every time I would build the layout of the path, I would realize, oh, I need a lot more space than I'm actually giving myself. But I want to still try and keep this whole park as compact as possible. I love looking at aerial photos and aerial videos of theme parks, especially Universal Studios in California. If you look at that kind of stuff, man, that park is so compact. It is absolutely insane how compact that park is. Like, on one side, you got Diagon Alley and Harry Potter, and literally the other side of the wall, the same wall, is Springfield. And just what they've been able to do with the limited amount of space that they have is just absolutely incredible. And if you ever want to check out the aerial photos that I'm referencing, there's an account on Twitter called Bio Reconstruct, and they take absolutely stunning aerial photography of Florida parks, of California parks. It's just, I love looking at that stuff. It's so cool to see what you don't see on the ground. I mean, there's so much to the park that we just never realize, whether it's like backlot areas, where they're working areas, or the actual building that houses the attraction itself, because that part isn't themed, but it's still just as impressive. So I just love looking at that kind of stuff. And like I said, I'm super excited to be building Angel Grove and a Power Ranger themed part of the park. Now, I did make a Ranger themed coaster before, but that was so far back in the past of Planet Coaster. And like I said, we didn't have a lot of options back in the day. There was no DLC. It was just the base game. There was no custom shape pieces. There was no importing of custom 3D objects. There was none of that. So being able to go back in and do this again with those more complex options is just an absolute blast. And I've been a fan of Power Rangers for so long. When I was growing up, it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original X-Men animated series, and Power Rangers. That was my jam growing up. And Power Rangers especially because I was the nerdy kid at school. I was picked on all the time. I was never popular, ever. I didn't really make a lot of friends until after elementary school and into high school, but Power Rangers just resonated with me so much, especially the character of Billy Cranston, because Billy was the nerd, Billy was the geek, and Billy was still able to do all the things that all the other Rangers were able to do, but he also was the tech guy. He built all the cool stuff that the Rangers use, like the wrist communicators. It's just the character really resonated with me. And of course, everyone was psyched when the Green Ranger showed up and when the Green Ranger became the White Ranger and all that. But Billy, there's just something like Billy was always my guy. In fact, the first Power Ranger cosplay I ever put together was the Blue Ranger. And then from there, what did I do? I did the original Mighty Morphin Blue. I've done Mighty Morphin Red. And then when I got the Dragon Shield, I did the Armored Red Ranger. I have a Green Ranger. I have the original White Ranger. And, I also have the Dino Thunder White Ranger. Because I stopped watching for a long time. Like, as soon as they went into space, I was like, I'm done. I'm good. When things go to space, that's when it just gets crazy. So I left the whole fandom for quite a while. Plus, when you grow up, you kind of just start falling out of things. Some things stick around, but other things you just kind of forget about. But then when Netflix got like pretty much every single season, I started watching the seasons again and realized like there were some really good seasons in there, especially call outs like Dino Thunder. Absolutely love Dino Thunder. The White Ranger in that is so dope because it was like the evil Green Ranger arc all over again, but that costume with that red visor, so slick. And I liked his Zord too. The Sixth Ranger always gets the really cool stuff, like Gold Ranger, super dope from Power Rangers Zeo, of course, Green Ranger and the original White Ranger. But I actually downloaded, there's a fighting game that was developed not too long ago, and I ended up picking it up. And it's a good fighting game. Like the tech is there, the gameplay is there, but they just don't have enough characters, and that's so weird for a property like Power Rangers that span 30 years in Japan and like 20 plus years in the US, and has a multitude of characters with different abilities and different weapons, and it's just like there's like 8 characters, and it's weird because it's like a Marvel v Capcom style game, so you pick 3 characters for your team, and it's just like there's not enough to justify that. So it's a fun game, but I hope they continue to add more characters to it in the future, because again, they've got plenty to choose from. So like I was talking about with the aerial photography that I've been looking at, especially for Universal Studios in Hollywood, they have a lot of these kind of I'm gonna say scenery pieces, these visual representations of a skyline. And it's mainly to block the viewer or the attendee from seeing things that they're not really supposed to see, or blocking certain aspects of additional parts of the park. Say, for example, like if you were over in Springfield, maybe you don't want to see the chimneys of Diagon Alley, something like that. So I started building these kind of blockades, these sky blockades, and started adding them to buildings throughout the park. Now, I went a little heavy-handed with this idea at first, and I started tailoring it and cutting it back once I realized that it was a little too much. But eventually we add little cloud shapes to these, and it really pulls it all together. You'll see an example of something similar to this that I built way back when in the original video game park for the Sonic area of the park. I built basically this whole skyline because the monorail cuts through that. So I wanted the monorail to be visible in certain parts, but I wanted it to be revealed. So we built part of the ground that was extended up above normal sight lines, so when you were on the Sonic coaster, you could see it. And then the sky kind of covered all the other stuff that we really didn't want the viewers to see, like the support structures and all of that. It will look good once it's all said and done. And I actually did a lot off camera between recording sessions, because one of the things that I realized that I was doing was stop recording and then immediately start recording again, and so often I would lose footage because of that, because I'm assuming it's processing stuff in the background, especially when these recording sessions are going an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour plus. I would just, do some minor changes and adjustments in the background while I was waiting for my capture to actually properly process, or at least give it the opportunity to properly process, because again, I didn't want to lose anything like I did last time. And so you'll notice that I'm kind of building this divot underneath the walkway. So the idea of this is, in the original version of this Power Ranger coaster that I built way back when, the coaster dives underneath the walkway. And I thought that was such a cool moment, not only for people on the coaster, but for people walking up to the ride. And it frames the command center structure between the coaster tracks. So I'm just like, you know what? That's a moment that I really wanted to replicate in this, because as we're building out Angel Grove, I want the coaster to interact with the exterior. But like I said, we're gonna have a couple of showroom scenes, and those scenes are probably gonna be, you're gonna trek into the command center. You'll see Alpha and you'll see Zordon, and they'll probably say something like the city's under attack, and then the coaster will kick off and you'll go into the city. And I don't know if we're gonna be able to build like a Goldar or one of the villains. I'm gonna try and figure that out, but the exterior is gonna be like the quote-unquote fight scene, and then we will probably go into another interior showroom, maybe showing like Rita Repulsa, you're doing the make my monster grow, like that kind of thing, and then we'll see like a larger version of the enemy character. Not quite sure exactly how it's gonna work, but I know we're gonna have some indoor scenes, and then we're gonna have some exterior scenes, because once we actually start building out Angel Grove, there's a lot of fun opportunities to interact, because we're also gonna be doing a flat ride, and it's gonna be based around the Pink Ranger's Pterodactyl Zord. And that'll actually be the first Zord that we start building, I believe, on the next episode. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the next episode we'll start working on the Zord. And I had a lot of fun working on those. I'm still trying to decide which Zords I'm gonna actually build. I would love to build all of them, because they're all great, but I'm gonna have to limit it because they take a long time. Especially if I want to do like the T-Rex, the Red Ranger's T-Rex, or if I want to do the Green Ranger's Dragon Zord. Man, those things are going to take a while. And it's good because they are pretty geometric in design, because those were just dudes in suits, so they made them pretty boxy. But still, it's going to be a lot of work, especially with the shape layer, I always say the shape layers. Sorry, that's the animator brain in me saying that. I'm thinking After Effects. The generic geometric shape objects. And it'll still be fun, but like I said, it's going to be a little bit of work. So I also wanted to add a couple of little buildings off to the side. Why am I talking like this? I don't know. It's early morning. I've had 2 cups of coffee. I stayed up till like 3 in the morning last night because I've been working on freelance projects, and I've been trying to record episodes of this. So I know I say this quite often, but I'm a little loopy. And in fact, I'm going to take a drink of coffee right now. That's good coffee. My friend Caitlin got me hooked on this place in downtown Chandler, and they make some good cold brew. And it's the only thing that's been keeping me going. I'm so tired. Anyways, so I wanted to build some buildings I wanted to make some buildings off to the side of the command center, because we need restrooms. I'm thinking we'll build restrooms off to the left, and maybe, just maybe, a store off to the right. I'm not sure, because we're gonna have plenty of stores because of building out Angel Grove. There's a bunch of empty buildings. One of them's definitely gonna be a coffee house. I almost want to do a Krispy Kreme. I don't know if y'all seen the newer Power Ranger movie, but like, good lord, that was the most product placement I have ever seen in my life. I think more so than a Michael Bay Transformers movie, because man, those are bad too. Literally had a Mountain Dew Transformer, for crying out loud. But there was Krispy Kreme in that movie has a plot point, like a large plot point, because basically the gem that houses all life that we know it on Earth, the Zeo Crystal, is underneath a Krispy Kreme. And they say Krispy Kreme multiple times. Like Billy says Krispy Kreme. Rita Repulsa not only says Krispy Kreme, she goes into the Krispy Kreme and orders a donut as Goldar is smashing things in the back. It is ridiculous. But Power Rangers itself is ridiculous. We're talking about an American show utilizing Japanese footage from a company that lost the rights to do a Japanese Spider-Man, so they came up with their own spandex wearing superheroes that had their own like weapons and vehicles and all that. So the whole concept is just bonkers to begin with. But that's what makes it kind of great, in my opinion. Like, I know it's cheese, but it's my favorite kind of cheese. So, but the Krispy Kreme bit was just ridiculous. I don't know if I want to like make a Krispy Kreme store, but maybe we'll have a donut shop. I think that would be great. And maybe we'll have like a Zeo crystal somewhere in the background of the donut shop or something. I don't know. There's lots left to be done in this section of the park, but I'm excited because, you know, we're not building a parking lot now, which I actually did go back in and created, or actually I utilized a parking lot structure that was in one of the example rides, which you'll see in the next episodes or so. But enough about that. We're at the end of today's episode. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate it. Y'all are awesome. We're actually approaching 3,000 subscribers. That's so cool. Thank you all so much for the support. And as always, I will chat with you on the next episode.